Go ahead.
I just wanted to come back to what Andy kind of started out with in terms of speaking to the consumer, because we're talking about the consumer having respect. And it's like, okay, if in my house, I'm probably gonna hire a master plumber for certain things, but I'm gonna call my handyman down the block for other things. But the risk is where the decision gets made. And I don't think, maybe we need a national campaign or something, but I don't think that translation has a presence with the consumer because they don't know the risks.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if we show them, we all have funny translation experiences,
Right.
Where the product looks ridiculous in front of, you know, the audience or whatever is happening. And we can show that to our clients. We can show that to the
I think that
translation
is
consumer.
an immense component of all of this, maybe the only component, I don't know, is client education. There's a fundamental misunderstanding of what it is we do and don't do.
What's important.
Yes, and what's important, why it's important, what it is that we do for them. So the $65,000 question is, how do we solve that?
And it may be not just funny, but it may be really dangerous. And I think that's, so, you know, I don't want to pressure people to do things, but maybe it's good to scare them sometimes and say, you know, you could have a multi-million-dollar lawsuit on your hands if you don't use qualified people. That's what happens in other professions too.
Absolutely.
So,
And I think, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You cannot defend a profession if there is no existence of a profession.
that's exactly
So
what
if you
this
go
is
to
about.
the DORA, which is the Division of Regulatory Affairs, and we have already said about this in this same room
Mhm.
several years ago
Yep.
and since.
Mm-hmm.
DORA has the ability and the prerogative to regulate professions in Colorado. So I cannot have my hair done if that professional has gone through the licensure, has done so many hours of practice with a fully licensed hairdresser and blah, blah, blah. You go look for an interpreter, you go look for a translator on the DORA website and you find translated by Google, and you look for an interpreter and it says, word not found. So 2 years ago, we started what's called a sunrise application. A sunrise application is a set of 25 or 27 questions that they have about a new profession that you think should be regulated. We did it. We presented a full-fledged list of multi-million-dollar lawsuits that were paid because of language issues. We put them in contact with people in Washington, people of standards, California, Oregon. All these states have advanced the profession because they have not organizations, they have lobbies. They have advocacy groups made of professionals in this room that do not talk about this only once a year, but continuously, to go back to your example.
Yes.
But we're not organized in Colorado because
Right.
the organizations that should do advocacy, they don't.
Okay.
And so after 1 year, Dora said, oh, we don't need to regulate the profession in Colorado. And I have a nice stack of 40 pages to tell me that we, ladies and gentlemen, don't need to
Okay.
regulate our profession.
So that's the good news is we're here to change that, right?
Exactly.
And to create, I would like to say that we as a panel would like to present this as an opportunity and as a platform to continue. This is not a one-time panel. We would like to have the opportunity to engage as many people as possible to create a movement, to create an organization that will lobby on our behalf so that we are accepted as a profession and so that we can set those standards and that we get the pay that we deserve.
Amanda?
Yeah, so back to the client education. I'm going to talk about something that I recently did, okay? We are so invisible as a profession that, this is about 3 weeks ago. So even though I'm a freelancer, I have a corporate membership with FACC. I just went ahead and sprung for the expensive level because I wanted to have the extra benefits, such as the ability to have events and to be able to advertise as a company and things like that. So I decided to host a client outreach and education event because I understand how important it is to do that. So both myself and the French Chamber of Commerce sent out, we had a very long and aggressive advertising campaign about the event. The text that we sent out was very clearly targeted directly towards businesses looking to expand overseas, and how do you find the right translator, how do you get the most out of your translation buck, and things like this. Okay, so it was very clearly for businesses. Came down to day of the event, and all of my audience except for one attendee, actually two attendees, were all translators. And three agencies. So one of the attendees was a client I had already started wooing several weeks ago. I was appreciative that she'd showed up, but really that wasn't a new lead because I'd already started, talking to her and everything. So we're so undervalued and invisible as an industry that you can't even reach a chamber of commerce that is composed entirely of businesses to come listen to us,
Mm-hmm.
So how do we overcome an obstacle like that?
Any thoughts?
Eliza had a question.
Well, it's
Oh,
not
it's
in relation to what she was saying. These are all very valid points about having to educate the client. Like you said, we all have our nightmare stories. Like one time I received 100,000 word document. I wanted it turned around by the next morning. So, this is, but I think there's another really important component, which is translators themselves. I've got to the point where I won't even edit people's work anymore because I don't want to retranslate. And Kelly, you said that there is a lot of work available, and there's plenty of work. You're right, I agree. I'm a translator, not so much an interpreter.
But both, yeah.
So there's plenty of work, but there are plenty of really poor linguists.
Right.
Extremely poor linguists. So the educational outreach programs, these are fantastic things, but how do we weed out the people that are already entrenched and they think that they're
Well, and this is the
they're
hard
making
thing.
money. Here's the thing is they're making money, they're not making money, why am I
Well,
getting
this is the thing. So it's our job to convince those clients who are working with those linguists who are not trained, who are poor linguists, that they're losing money, that there's a problem. And what I have found over the years is that on the government side, they understand risk avoidance, right? So they don't want to be sued. And on the corporate side, they understand ROI and brand erosion. So if you can show them, if you can illustrate to somebody,
Right.
Using what they have given you, the work that they are being given, that you're editing is substandard. Because I think what a lot of times what happens is they give the work for translation to somebody who's cheap, and then they give it to somebody who's good to fix it. So we just, if we all just say no to that,
Right.
More than say no, you should start and send all the draft changes.
mark it up and send it back, yeah.
If you want, I can retranslate that for you.
Oh, I've done that many
Yeah,
times.
right.
Right.
So-
And
so-
now, like everybody
Exactly.
I work with, they know don't send her editing.
Yeah.
I don't think that because they can still not judge your editing.
Right.
I think that it
One
would be more
suggestion
like
I make
for us to communicate to the companies that provide bad translation to just complain about the bad translation as customers, not as potential
Right.
providers.
Service
Because
providers,
as
yeah.
potential providers, they could always think, because you wanted to get the job instead of the other.
Right.
But if we say, there is this manual and that bought your product and it doesn't mean anything, and that's it. I just complain about the quality of product, just
Sure.
like, okay, I bought this player, but it broke after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think what you can also do is give them the retranslation and tell them, show this to a native Spanish speaker, show this to a native Arabic speaker, and ask them what they think. And that will tell them.
Deborah, you had a question?
You know my name.
I did. We were just in your presentation, which was brilliant, by the way.
What you were saying is very present in subtitling in Bulgaria. One company decided to fire all the Bulgarian translators and to go with Google Translate plus a reviewer. The Bulgarian public complained so much that they stopped the program. So if you have to complain, please complain. If you, any platform, Hulu, Netflix, any platform, they have, how did you like this title? Go in and you can type. So if you see stuff, we really, really have to complain when we're the public.
Okay.
But how do you do that when you're a translator? Because if you're complaining about the garbage work that's coming into you all the time to edit, then they're gonna be like, she's such a complainer. We don't want to give work to her because she's always, negative Nelly or whatever.
Well, it depends on who you're working with and and who's listening to you. I mean, it's you might be up against somebody who maybe you just can't work with that company. I mean,
Yes.
if some people can't be convinced.
If they
So
don't,
it's your choice. You have to walk away.
exactly, and if they don't value your input, if they don't value your input, maybe they're not worth it.
Yeah.
As a client.
I think there are constructive ways to.
Okay, we have somebody over here
In the Blatcher.
who's dying to talk.
Yeah, sorry, you're in the dark over there. Sorry.
I'm not liking this whole conversation. For a couple of reasons. One is that, actually, I think my clients understand me only too well.
Good.
Most of them, in any case, I translate German into English. So many of my clients are well-educated people who have good knowledge of English. What distinguishes them is they either work for an agency or they are the end users. The people who work for an agency have essentially the same background as myself. They have chosen sides, really. And I know they understand me. I know they understand what I do. They are not in the business of rewarding me for that if it can be avoided.
You're talking about the agencies you work for?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, there are going to be some agencies that are like that, I'm sure.
Well, I think many people who work for agencies have to make a choice. That's at least try to maintain a balance, put it that way. And then the direct clients, many of them actually have pretty good command of English. What they don't have in my case is trade words, technical terminology that would allow them, so they see the whole thing as their level of knowledge plus a little more.
Right.
And if only they did a little more, they could do what I do.
Right.
That doesn't depress me too much, but it wants me to stop calling myself a translator. It makes me want to call myself a language consultant or a communications consultant.
Right. Uh-huh.
And it makes me particularly not want to do piecework.
Mm-hmm.
Piecework in the working population of the United States was essentially outlawed in the 1920s. Yet, our friends, SDL and others, have really structured the business of translation by insisting that word counts. I'm very carried away here. Insisting that word counts are somehow the measure of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she said.
That's what I
If you
just
wish
said.
to be regarded as a professional,
Yeah.
you do not charge by the number of injections you give your clients, your patients.
Right.
You have another measure
Yeah.
of how you value your time.
And not all
Which
words
is
are
where it
created
all
equal
is.
Right.
either.
Yeah.
No, but it's a terrible way of measuring complexity
Exactly.
Right.
or difficulty, how
Right.
much effort you put into
Right.
something.
I
So my question to you
I'm
is,
so
why do you
glad.
not-
I'm
Yeah,
glad.
I'm done.
I'm really
Thank you.
glad. I'm really glad you brought this up because this is what I keep telling some of the clients who don't understand that. You know, they ask me, oh, you gave me a project price of, I don't know, some $1,000. I got prices from 2 other companies and they gave me per word prices. Why? Why are you different? And I said, because translation is not something that you can measure by the value of each word, because it's more complex than that. And we are not just translators of words, we are communicators. We help other people, and the goal should be to help other people communicate with each other
Transferring ideas. Yep.
and understanding each other. So what goes into that? Not just the word by word. You have a huge consulting piece in there. You have the cultural aspect in there, and all that knowledge that you have now after a certain year of profession, you can bring to the table and tell your client, well, you know, maybe you should change the picture in that brochure. You say, why? Well, you know, if you go to Africa, maybe you shouldn't have white people in there. That is blatant, you know. But there's several things that we bring to the table that clients don't realize. And I'm very happy that you brought that up, and that's a big piece of the whole puzzle. Yes?
I made the move about 2 years ago to actively quote per project. I have about half, I'm a freelancer, and I have about half agency and half direct customers. So for what it's worth, anecdotally, none of the direct customers complained, ever, not once.
Right.
And about half of the agencies did not complain either. So it is absolutely possible to switch to per project, flat fee, occasionally hourly rates for editing, but even I generally do a flat fee for editing.
And it's a question of like you educating the people as to why, as you were saying, because I mean we're stuck with this model. That's what the marketplace is used to, and getting them out of that is hard, but obviously not impossible.
It's not
We set
impossible.
our standards. You said it earlier.
Exactly.
We
Most of
set.
them just accepted it.
Yep.
Most of them accepted it
Very
without
nice.
questions
Right,
and didn't even, you know, I just give a flat fee every time,
right.
That's good.
And they obviously understand what value comes with that.
hopefully. Still coming back, so.
Okay.
Victoria, you had a question?
Just talking about that value and about thinking about the first presentation of this morning, the keynote presentation about making the list of the assets
Mm-hmm.
that we have and the liabilities. And it ties with what you were saying, that when you know and you are sure and you feel confident about what are you bringing to the table when you are presenting yourself as a translator to a client or an agency, it's clear for you what you're expecting for this trade, from
Right.
this exchange. So, and I work in an agency and an advertising agency, but I also do freelance work. So I get to see both worlds because I work with an agency, I work with translators, and I am a client, I am in the other side, so I get to see, and I just, because of, I'm used to bill by the hours on my agency, it makes sense many times to bill by the hour, by project, stuff like that, because I can see everything that is involved in a project. Sometimes when you're just working as a translator, that you are handed something, you don't know what's behind. All the things that are behind, and all the budget that is behind. Many translators don't know. The translations agency might or might not know, but if you're working with direct clients, there are many times more budget than you might think. So that is important to learn about the industry, to learn what are the prices, what creating a brochure for a pharmaceutical company costs. I mean, that is not something that you might Google, right? But getting that information will help you to know what the translations is vital, because this is going to the entire country,
Right.
and this is gonna be printed
Exactly.
20 million of these, or
Right.
15
Right.
or 5 million.
Yep.
Charging $200 for that doesn't make sense.
No.
All right.
Absolutely.
Doesn't make sense.
That's a
Absolutely.
very good point.
So all of those things, also getting knowledgeable about the industry, costs, and all those things, it helps to make your offer and feel more wholesome about what you bring to the table.
You had a question?
Very good
I would
point.
just like to add, I don't know if I'm the youngest here, but it's bothering me, something that you said before. And I would like to push back a little bit on that in the sense of again, of education. I am one of those young guys that is starting in this business, right? And it's a constant question. I think you all have been there in that position in which, how much do I charge? How much should I do this, you know? And I think that before, when you mentioned that about that student in NYU and you told it that type, to that kind of approach, I would have said back off, and I would have said I'm not gonna follow this profession, because I think that those are the things that we need to hear, right? And from the program I come, they don't teach me about this stuff, right? And it's a translation program, right? It's a BA. It was an interdisciplinary study in translation. But I don't know. I think that Kelly, right? She actually came from the same university, but I think you did the master's there, right? I don't know if they do that in the master's degree.
They didn't tell you a thing about what to charge or business,
right?
not at all.
So I
That's
think
the
that
problem.
we should be really careful with this new generation that is coming too, because we're unable to see it either. You know, it's like the same thing happens. I was a professional ballet dancer too, and this happens in the ballet world. Like, we have all these many people coming and they go and study, right? And they get this degree, and then they start dancing. And then you have this person who has been dancing since he was 14, and he has all these competitions, all this money, and all this stuff, you know, put there and that work, and then he doesn't get hired because he doesn't have a bachelor's, for example. And then those are things that we as dancers, we have to go back and see and explore, because no one teaches like what to do when that situation happens. So for me, it's really hard, and I push really strong in that kind of stuff, because I think that is something that we might have not seen, and we might need to work together.
Sure.
Because if I'm here and I'm listening to this, and I am blown away, because I can't believe that my program didn't taught me that, you know?
Well, and that's yeah.
And it's really, for me, it's really hard to listen this from this conference. Like, you shouldn't do that, because you're affecting the image of a translator. That's a really strong position for me as someone that is starting.
It is,
because I
yeah.
freaked out and I say, well, I just will go back to Walgreens. So I think that education is important, and I am a student in Spanish Portuguese from CU, and I think that universities are really good hubs to start, for example, and do that stuff. Like, I have many coworkers that they're not certified. I'm not certified, and I've done translations, right? But my BA is in translation. I'm doing my master's in linguistics. And many of them are not certified. They just do translations on the side because they teach Spanish to
Right.
native speakers. But I think that we should add one that is, you know, the first timer here in this kind of conference. I think that I raise my voice for those that we're racing, like we're coming up, and we're unable. We are how is the word, like, ignorant, right, in this kind of stuff. And I think that I need people like y'all.
Exactly.
We're here.
That's exactly, yeah.
So,
But-
yeah, I'm sorry that I pushed back in that sense.
No,
It's important.
that's really good.
I need you all in my life.
That's right. That's right. And that's why we're doing this, because I think we all have to embrace the younger translators who are coming out of the program and give them the tools to be successful in the profession. But that's the obligation of all of us as well. We have one more question over here.
I just wanted to circle back around to the whole education, client education piece. I think that what we need to do is threefold, because really everybody's our client. We need to educate our actual clients. We need to educate the people that we meet on the street. We need to be ambassadors for translation. I work at a yarn store one night a week, and I can't tell you how many people are like, "What's your day job?" And they've never heard of a translator. They don't know what it is. And they're like, "Oh, I have something that I just confuse you."
There you go.
It
Yeah.
happens all the time. And then, as a third piece, educating the students that are coming
Exactly.
in. Because I'm a fairly new translator myself. I've only got 5 years under my belt. And to me, coming in, it was like a big, giant black hole. You had no idea what was happening.
Exactly.
And it was thanks to CTA that I learned how to be a translator and what to charge
Right.
and all that kind of thing. And I think it's really important to educate everyone. Like, educate your clients, educate the public, anybody you meet, and the students that are coming in.
And it's also fair to say that it's, the number does not really mean everything. Because in that number, there is the experience, there is the field, there is the specialization, there is the negotiation that you do, the volume, a client, a big client, a smaller client. But definitely some ranges are worth to talk in the industry. Because believe me, even those that sit at the agency, it's a nightmare. So they look at us agency as, oh my God, I don't want to work with you because you're going to get a bigger pie. Well, we also have costs. So there's
Right.
always a way to learn. And, learning about each other's role, it opens an entire perspective because like Veronica said, if I sit as a translator, I only see my little pond. And I don't see what it takes on that pond because we take years in developing clients that one translator can mess up.
Mhm.
And it's gone to someone else. So you see, then the discussion is worth for everybody because, ladies and gentlemen, we are on the same boat sailing together.
That's right.
Point of actuality here. As an organization, as an organization, ATA may not recommend rates for translation work. We all know that.
Right.
It's a violation of antitrust law. This organization would be in the same position. However, the German Translators Association conducts an annual survey of what translators charge their members, and they publish the results. That's not a recommendation in any shape or form. It's simply an observation of the state of the market.
Very important point.
Yep. Thank you.
ATA publishes similar
Right,
survey.
and on that note, we probably have to wrap up this conversation. I would like to thank everybody for your participation, and if you have any thoughts, before we all leave, if you have any thoughts, any suggestions on where we go from here, because we do want to make this a really sustainable effort, and we might want to come back next year and see where we are with progress, because I would like to hold everybody accountable and for not just talking, including myself. I would like you to get in touch with Kelly, Andy, Stephen, myself. We can all exchange information throughout the year. We would love to hear from you for suggestions on how we build on this and where we are going to go to make our profession a real profession in the United States. And well, we're a whole nation though, and yeah. So thank you all and have a good evening.